Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Joel Bear, and I am back with a special one this week. Not just this week, it's a big announcement. We've got a new signing. That's right, we're getting our signings right here on 5. Mr. David Ornstein is joining our team because he's going to be doing a video for us every single week, and we are looking for a name for the show. What do you guys have for us? Please get involved. Right now, we have it as 5 Reacts. If you guys want that, then cool, stay with it, or we can try other names. Now, today is a special video, David. We're looking at ownerships, the relationship between owners and managers, and we're going to focus specifically on the Glazers versus the Kroenkes. Are you ready to give us the information?
I was born ready.
My guy, let's get cracking. Today, I want to look at the relationships between the club owners and managers. Now, obviously, there's some big games coming up this weekend. Arsenal versus Bournemouth, of course. You got Man Utd playing Liverpool on Monday night. And it's really critical because obviously the window is about to close soon. And it's just about seeing how the clubs have been able to serve their managers and the players that are still in the team. I want to start off by looking at Mikel Arteta. Now, this is someone that's been in the process for a while. You know, sometimes I've believed it, sometimes I haven't. But he's got a very good relationship with Edu, so what it seems like from outside. Can you tell me a little bit about their structure and how that's developed until now?
Yeah, so when Mikel Arteta came to the club, Joel, he was given the title of head coach. And it was very much fitting into this new continental system that Arsenal had instigated towards the end of Arsene Wenger's reign at the club in 2018. Ivan Gazidis was chief executive at the time, and the owning Kroenke family gave him the authority to implement this more European style. So there was like a head of football, head of recruitment, head of high performance, head of negotiations. That was being built around Arsene Wenger, but he still was all powerful. When he left the club in the spring of 2018 and Unai Emery came in, Arsenal had their first head coach. By this point, they had Raul Sanllehi as, I think, head of international relations, Sven Mislintat as head of recruitment, Huss Fahmy as head of contracts, and Darren Burgess as head of high performance. It started to change in time in the sense that Ivan Gazidis left and the people put in charge of running the club on a day-to-day basis were like dual chief executives in Raul Sanllehi and Vinay Venkatesham, with the Kroenkes overseeing it all, because by this point they had taken full ownership of the club, and Josh Kroenke was getting more involved than his father Stan on a sort of regular basis. More people came and went. Raul Sanllehi left. Unai Emery left, Mikel Arteta came in, and as I said, he was given the title of head coach. Soon, Edu would be fully fledged technical director. And then as time wore on, Huss Fahmy left on the contract side. Richard Garlick came in from the Premier League. Mikel Arteta took on the role of manager, which is quite an important moment for him in terms of his power and authority. And it brings us to the present day, where the Kroenkes still delegate to the people on the ground, even though you've got Josh Kroenke being heavily involved in the conversations as part of the board. They've got Tim Lewis on the board, who was a lawyer who had worked on behalf of the Kroenkes, helped up the Kroenkes with their takeover of Arsenal, now getting a place on the Arsenal board and really involved on a day-to-day basis from a director point of view. And then you've got Vinay Venkatesham as chief executive on his own. You've got Edu as technical director on his own. You've got Richard Garlick supporting on the contract side. And then you've got Mikel Arteta as manager. So Arsenal would argue that it's much more streamlined now, with everybody knowing their roles. And they would like to think that there will be no more chopping and changing for the time being.
So, you know, there was a time where we were not really happy with the board, Arsenal fans, blaming the board, you know what we were like at some point. What were the actual changes that were made during that time? I know you've explained the structure, but during that particular time, did they hear the complaints of the fans? The reason why I asked this is because if you're comparing clubs like, for example, Manchester United, they are not happy with what's going on with the Glazers at the moment. Now, they might not completely sell, but they might make certain changes. I want to know what changes Arsenal had made during that time.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think one of the things that the Kroenke family were waiting for was to take full ownership, because if you remember, they were in a bit of a power battle with Elisha Usmanov at the time, who had
Yeah.
accumulated quite a big shareholding himself, and that was denying the Kroenkes 100%. There were times where it looked like they wanted to take full control, but the Kroenkes stood firm. And in the summer of 2018, I think it was, they became 100% outright owners, and it attracted a lot of criticism. It felt quite hostile to some of the smaller shareholders who were forced to sell, and that sort of cut their historic ties with the club. But this was the moment the Kroenkes were waiting for, and by no coincidence, they started to invest more money in the team thereafter. You saw Thomas Partey's release clause activated. I think there was the Nicola Pepe signing as well a little bit earlier. And, you know, the signings and the investment in the transfer market, Arsenal fans for many years at the Emirates Stadium were singing "spend some effing money," and that's what Arsenal are doing now. Their sort of gross outlay, even their net outlay, is most the more Premier League teams in recent years. And they started to be able to put their mark on it. Now, there was fierce criticism of them around, for example, their potential involvement in the proposed European Super League, that breakaway competition that we heard so much about at the time. The fans were furious. There were protests outside the Emirates Stadium. You'll remember that Daniel Eck, the Spotify co-owner, was heavily interested in taking over Arsenal. But the clear message from the Emirates Stadium, from the Kroenkes, was that we're not interested in selling. Arsenal is not for sale, and they will continue on their sort of projects and their pathway. Despite all of that criticism, they've actually seemed to have ridden the storm to the extent where Arsenal have now started this Premier League season well. The sort of controversy around their ownership has quietened somewhat, because Arsenal are winning matches, they've signed good players, they're playing good football. It's an exciting time at the club. And so currently the ownership situation seems to be quite stable at the Emirates Stadium.
Now, my last question on this section is, when it comes to Mikel Arteta, yes, he's got the title of manager.
Yeah.
How does he work with Edu? Now, he identifies the players. He tells Edu. Edu uses his relationship, or does Edu come and say, "Listen, I'm watching the team as well. This is who I think should fit into the system," and they kind of agree or disagree?
Many people around football and Arsenal felt that it was a bad decision for Mikel Arteta to go from head coach to manager. It was something that I think the club proposed, but he was very much on board with. It gave him more authority, control, power over more areas. And there were some who felt he should just focus on the coaching and sorting this team out, picking up from Unai Emery. He's had some rocky moments, some good moments as well, of course, with the FA Cup win, but they've not managed to qualify for the Champions League. They've got back into the Europa League, but people saying just focus on the pitch, and he needs somebody else to protect him, provide a shield, deal with recruitment and all that sort of stuff. But I think Mikel Arteta was keen on having a bit of a role in all of those. But crucially, he does have Edu there, as you say. And Edu and Richard Garlick's responsibilities are to look after contracts, look after recruitment, look after many off-field, behind-the-scenes issues that we won't have seen: analytics, data, sports science, developing relationships with other clubs, loans, and they've got Ben Napper, who's the loans manager as well. So largely, Mikel Arteta can focus on the training and preparing the team, but he also has that sort of support network, the academy, of course, the women's team too. So Edu will be sort of overseeing all of that, largely, of course, on the men's side. But from everything we hear and we see in that Amazon documentary, they have a pretty fluid and healthy relationship. They're talking all the time. They're on the phone. They're in meetings together. They're discussing targets. I think Mikel Arteta's job, this is continental, is to identify the players that, or the positions that he would like to strengthen in that team. And then it's the job of Edu and his recruitment team to go and provide lists of options, candidates for Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff to assess. They bring them back to them. They go through them all together. Of course, Arteta will have his eye on certain players. His knowledge of the game is vast, and he has his own contacts book. And then Edu will have the same, his relationships, his connections, the conversations he's had, and they kind of bring it all together with the data and with the analytics to try to make the right decisions. In the case of Gabriel Jesus, it was Arsenal's top target, first choice. They'd put months and months of work into it. Edu has the connection with the player, with the agent from their Brazilian background. And then you have Mikel having his relationship with the player from Manchester City, the player having his relationships with a number of Brazilian players at Arsenal, and now with Zinchenko from Manchester City. So that's an example of how well it can work. You see other situations that are more of a surprise, like Fabio Vieira. And you see, different targets coming from different areas. I think back to last summer when Mikel Arteta was really keen to bring in Aaron Ramsdale. Ben White, I think, was probably a bit of both. I'm trying to think of this summer. Zinchenko was probably more of a Arteta target because he had worked with him so closely at Manchester City. But from what we hear, this is a really strong collaborative effort. Once those targets have been identified, Edu will go out and hold the negotiations in conjunction, I guess, with Richard Garlick, who will work on the contractual side. Mikel Arteta, I'm sure, will speak to the players, families, representatives when necessary. And in recent times, they seem to be getting more successful in the market than they were before.
Yeah. Now, I want to move it on to Manchester United. There's a lot of noise going on. I'm even hearing the likes of Jim Ratcliffe looking to take over. Well, I say take over, try to buy Manchester United if it was to be received. But it's a tough one right now. I don't know. It seems like it's the topic of conversation. Oh, yeah, I would like to own, but you can like to do what you want to do, but are you going to be able to? Question. Do you see what I mean? Can you explain to us the current situation at Manchester United? Are the Glazers even going to be selling? I mean, because from the outside looking in, it seems like a very good business for them. And if I'm looking at it as a business, not as a club that's loved by millions and deserves to be treated well, why would you sell? You're able to take dividends the day that you're gonna sell the company. You're gonna make a profit, versus what you bought it for in the first place. What's going on over there?
Yeah, well, the background to this is the Glazer family took over United in 2005. It was a leveraged buyout, which meant they used debt to buy the club, and that created a poisonous atmosphere among the fan base from day one. The relationship has not really improved. They've taken dividends out, as you say. Many feel that they haven't invested sufficiently in recruitment, even though the club have spent a huge amount of money. Is that the Glazers' money itself? No, it's the club's revenues, whereas they have taken money out for themselves. Investment in the training ground at Carrington, in the stadium at Old Trafford, both of which need to be upgraded. And now they're doing quite poorly on the pitch as well. They've not won a trophy since 2017. It's been a rocky ride since Sir Alex Ferguson left. In terms of the clamour among many to say sell, well, the same was being said of the Kroenke family at Arsenal, and they were very resolute in saying, or the club said off the record, we're not selling, there's no interest there. That message has not come from Manchester United or from the Glazer family in this particular round of stories. They've just not commented on it. Make of that what you will. Perhaps it shows they are here to stay, and perhaps it shows there's a bit of light for those who want the Glazers to sell in partial or full form. Now, there was a report in Bloomberg that came out the day before we recorded this, saying that the Glazers would consider selling a stake in the club, and that there's plenty of interested parties in doing that. And then later in the day, it emerged through Matt Dickinson in the Times that Sir Jim Ratcliffe would like to make an investment in the club, and with a view to a full takeover at some point in the future. You can read into that however you like. One point that you mentioned was that anyone can come forward and say they're interested in buying a football club and then create a lot of media attention, resonate with a fan base who seem to be desperate more than ever for a change in ownership at Manchester United. I guess this one's a little bit different in that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is from the Manchester area. He grew up as a Manchester United supporter, although when he expressed interest in buying Chelsea, we know that he has become a Chelsea season ticket holder, because where because of where he has lived in the UK. But he did grow up as a Manchester United fan and has a strong connection with the local area. We know that he has been investing in football in terms of the fact that he is the owner of Nice now in Liga. He has got investment, I think, in Belgium as well. He, as we know, looked at trying to buy Chelsea before the Todd Bowley Clear Lake Consortium came through. So those are the sort of indications that this is a credible possibility in his mind. Don't forget that when he was looking at buying Chelsea, he gave an interview to Dan Rowan on the BBC in which he was asked, why aren't you trying to buy Manchester United? And he said, because they're not for sale. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't saying he didn't want to buy Manchester United. He said they're not available. Are they available now? Well, there are reports starting to build, such as the Bloomberg one, that they might be open to some investment. I've read a couple of articles suggesting that although the sort of Glazer siblings who are most heavily involved in Manchester United, Joel and Avi Glazer, some of the others who sit on the board reportedly want out. And so perhaps that has opened a window for investors to start to circle, to play on the public sentiment that could develop into a situation here. But as things stand, we don't know if it will make any difference. The reporting suggests that the Glazer family don't want to sell the whole club, and that if they are to allow some investment and some shares to go elsewhere, those shares come with very little power, minimal voting rights, and that they still retain control over decision making. But certainly there's noise around this. There's a good piece in The Independent by Miguel Delaney. So people should read up and understand that there is some sentiment here, if nothing else. There are people willing to invest or buy Manchester United. Suggestions that they're valued at around £6 billion. Chelsea went in total for around £4 billion. So it would have to be a substantial outlay. But some of these individuals who have been linked, they have wealth that would allow them to do this sort of thing. It might even be a drop in the ocean when we're looking at some of the consortiums who get linked to buying these sort of clubs. So a really big story with more fan protests planned on Monday when Manchester United take on Liverpool at Old Trafford, which was the corresponding fixture last season that the fan protests managed to cause the postponement of. So this is just an absolutely fascinating time at Man United.
My last question on this particular topic, David, from the outside looking in, where do you reckon this is going to go?
Well, this is more my gut instinct, because I don't think it's a particularly informed or educated view. It's more of a sense that this will most likely be a slow process, because the Glazers have been in situ since 2005. They appear to be committed going forward and embedded in the club. When you speak to people around football, finances, takeovers that have got far more experience and expertise in this than me, they say that the Glazer family will not care about the criticism in a similar way to what we heard about the Kroenke family. They're in it for the long haul. They know the value of their investment. They see the prestige in having Manchester United Football Club in their portfolio. They're not going to walk away, and they will take whatever criticism and abuse comes their way. We don't know how resilient they are to a full extent, but they seem to have pretty thick skin, and they're not here in the UK. So from a Manchester United fan perspective, it could be protracted, it could be painful, it might never come to fruition. The soundings we've had are that United know, and the Glazer family know, they need to invest in upgrades of Old Trafford, that they've engaged in companies to talk about that with, and that plans are afoot. That's similar with Carrington. Off the back of the proposed European Super League and its collapse, we got the impression, or it was certainly given out, that the Glazers, and in particular Joel Glazer, who's the main person in control at United, would engage more with fans and fan groups. We now see statements coming out from the Manchester United Supporters Trust calling for change around this supposed investment or takeover of sorts. They're saying it needs to be real new money, and we want to know what the the investors would be looking to do, how they'd be looking to do it. We would want engagement. We would want fan representation. So this all feels like, if it is the start of something, I'm not sure it would happen particularly quickly. But Manchester United fans may see some green shoots in this, however valid or not. What we do know is there's been enormous change at Manchester United in recent weeks, months. This year, we've seen Ed Woodward leave as executive vice chairman and replaced by Richard Arnold as chief executive. He's based more at Old Trafford than Ed Woodward was, and seems to be a relatively popular figure internally in terms of his communication and his commitment to actions. You've seen Erik ten Hag come in as manager, so a change in personnel on that front. A number of changes behind the scenes on recruitment. John Murta has come forward as like de facto director of football. He's got an assistant in Andy O'Boyle. You've seen player changes taking place. So there's so much flux at Manchester United that you seem never to be able to predict what might happen next. And that makes these reports and rumours come at quite an interesting time. I can't see which way it will go, but certainly something needs to change at Manchester United. Whether the Glazers are staying or relinquishing some of their power, this club is a million miles from where they believe they belong and where historically they have been. And so some fundamental things are going to have to happen for them to get back there. And in the short term, they need to win football matches. 2 defeats, worst start to a league season for 101 years, struggling to get in the signings that they want to. This is going to be a busy week or so before the deadline at Old Trafford. I think they're trying to bring in a number of players. We may see some leave. So I guess it's watch this space and keep following all the reports.
David, that was brilliant, fantastic news. The Glazers versus the Kroenkes. Guys, everyone watching, you're going to be in for a treat this season because we have Mr. David Ornstein with us every week for the rest of the season. I want to give a massive shout out to David, massive shout out to The Athletic. Keep on watching. We want names for the shows, by the way. Give us a name for the show. You know, like we want you guys to get involved. We're providing this for you. We've got the best in the world involved. Let us know what you think. And you know what? We'll have further videos, David, when we're comparing, you know, Liverpool's ownership, Chelsea's ownership, even the likes of Bournemouth as well. I'm really interested in their structure, etc. We've got a big game coming up this week. Like I said, Arsenal versus Bournemouth. You got Leeds take on Chelsea. You've got Man United taking on Liverpool. So there's going to be loads to talk about, etc. And yeah, for those as well on the channel, please don't forget to press the subscribe button, smash the like button, and don't forget to check out our other videos. The Nani video that we just did. Have you seen it, David? You haven't had a chance to see it yet, have you?
I need to check that out. I've been too busy with football transfers, but I will. It's a big video, and of course we got Vibe with 5. We've got loads of things coming, so please stay tuned to the channel. Joel Bayer signing out. Speak to you soon. Peace.
Joel, I don't know how come you keep picking Ronaldo like he's the problem.
No, because I'm
not.
Like,
I'm not there's afraid. So many other players in this squad that are doing less and less contributing less. No, it's not being afraid, but ask the right questions. There's more players that have contributed far less than Cristiano Ronaldo, and you keep calling him because he's the big name. Come on, bro.